So it's really from Murphy to Manio.
ABG stands for All Black Gang.
We realized just how violent it was when there was an individual that was assaulted and set on fire.
We're looking at a statewide network.
Nobody would have thought that the Mexican drug cartel would have their hands and their activities into North Carolina, but you know what? They are.
But these guys are changing.
Did you see him get stabbed?
There are steep consequences for us, the good guys.
My uncle was actually murdered by a gang in front of me.
It totally destroyed my life.
There was never closure for a parent who's lost a child.
And in this changing underworld, severe consequences for bad guys as well.
The guy with the chainsaw, the guy with a knife waiting to get the order to cut your head off.
Why should you care? Why are the next 30 minutes important?
Is he breathing right now?
When people ignore it, it doesn't go away. It never goes away. It always gets worse.
Because if you talk with the criminals, and we do.
Have you ever shot anyone?
Nope, not to my knowledge.
Ever shot at someone?
Yes, I have.
They'll tell you it's us, the innocent, who are targets.
Somebody fresh, somebody you don't know, they live a 9 to 5.
It's the underworld under us.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I can't. This gang stuff is just horrible.
Tonight we're going to take you into places you probably haven't gone before in North Carolina. Dark places, as told by real people in our state. People who know. I'm Molly Grantham. I've reported on gangs here in Charlotte for years, but recently the big city problems we see here in Charlotte and in Raleigh and in Greensboro have been pushed into every small town you can name. Don't believe me? Take it from the experts.
2006, we had a gang-related shooting in Wallace, North Carolina.
We have all of the major gangs in Hickory.
They had a gang problem in Washington County and Plymouth.
Numbers back up the anecdotes. We got much of the information you're about to see at a 3-day statewide gang conference put on by the North Carolina Gang Investigators Association. More than 700 law enforcement officials representing 66 North Carolina counties. Many work undercover. We had to be careful about protecting identities. Reporters have never been invited until now. WBTV was given exclusive access. The leaders of this fight against gangs invited us to join them so we can arm you with reality. Let's start with raw facts. 7 counties have 40 or more known gangs. The obvious cities: Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point area, Wilmington, and Fayetteville. 11 counties have between 21 and 40 known gangs. Some of these might surprise you. Moore County, known for golf. Duplin County, known for wine. And Pender County along the coast. They've got dozens. Now these 34 counties you see in blue have up to 20 known working gangs. And these 37 counties we're highlighting in yellow, they're all considered to be at risk, meaning they have gangs, they're just not documented with specific groups taking credit for the crimes. So bottom line, it's everywhere.
It's understood that a lot of cities and towns don't want to be labeled as having gang problems.
We don't live in Mayberry anymore.
That's a lesson Phoebe Shepard, a mom, learned the hard way. We have to hide her face and where she now lives because prosecutors say the Crips in High Point are out to get her.
Because I am the mother of Josh Schweitzer. My 21-year-old son was murdered November 1st, 2007 as a result of a gang initiation.
On Halloween, Phoebe's oldest son was helping her brother, his uncle, work at his brand new Shell station on Fairfield Road in High Point when 6 guys walked in.
They shot him and they beat him up. I learned later that they wanted to be initiated into a gang called the Crips.
Josh had never touched crime in his life. His dream was to be an FBI agent. The guys charged later said that hit on the Shell station was completely random.
My brother that had the store, the Shell gas station store, ended up committing suicide. He never got over the guilt of asking my son to help him for a couple of hours that night.
Phoebe made a hospital bedside promise to her son. She would find justice. took almost 6 years to go to trial.
All of the defense attorneys did everything they possibly could to keep the gang references out of the court, but then the one gang member actually got on the stand, and he was pretty proud of the fact that he was a gang member.
Charges were dropped for 4 of the 6. One cut a plea deal and got 14 years. The shooter got life in prison. She has never talked publicly until now.
If this can happen to me, if this can happen to my family, this can happen to anybody's family.
These 6 guys charged in Phoebe's case were all between the ages of 17 and 20. Investigators say most people get into gangs even younger. You can find images like this on schoolwork across the state. We obtained these pictures from elementary schools in Winston-Salem. Symbols that promote crime, gangs, guns, and drugs, like 8-ball. Kids are sucked in young, and investigators say it's starting even younger. Listen to this simple, powerful message.
Happy kids don't join gangs.
Tony Marino is a retired 31-year veteran detective with Los Angeles Police Department. He's known as a gang expert who tracks and locks up gang members in Central America and the U.S. He says North Carolina will never arrest its way out of this problem.
It's affecting innocent people. It's affecting good people.
He says change starts with kids. Give them little victories. Teach children there's always a right path.
It could be in the Bronx, it could be in Durham, it could be in South Central LA, it could be in Charlotte. If a gang member is going to be a gang member, those kind of philosophies are embedded in their head.
But let's face it, the real story is going to come from the criminals themselves. We sat down with a 24-year-old with a long rap sheet. He said he'd talk honestly if we hid his identity.
Because I'm still actually active in a gang.
You're in a gang? What gang?
We call it the United Blood Nation.
Clipper, as we're calling him, got jumped into the Bloods at 10 years old. Now at 24, he's trying to get out, but says once in, you really can't ever leave.
It's blood in, blood out.
He says he's just part of a club.
It's not a gang. It's
the Bloods are not a gang.
It's an organization.
You know we're playing semantics.
Yeah, but I mean, we like to call it an organization. People don't call fraternities gangs.
But fraternities aren't committing crimes.
Not in the public, guys. We don't know what they doing behind closed doors.
Clipper is currently enrolled in community college. He got involved in elementary school.
And as a child, you think that's like the neighborhood superstars.
The Bloods are a part of his genes.
My father, who was locked up for 7 years before I was born, when I met him when I was 7, he was part of a gang, So when he got out, all the stuff that he did, I seen it. He dealt drugs, he cooked drugs, he sold drugs. He robbed people. I seen all of that. I can recall my daddy robbing Sonic with me in the back seat of a car.
Once in a Greensboro middle school, Clipper was caught with $2,500 in his locker. He'd made the money by selling crack to kids. But he says he got more respect from fellow gang members by taking from people who work hard, many times robbing them on a street.
Or, can I talk to you? Can I use your phone? That works a lot. Just to get them to stop, try to start a conversation, and while I'm doing that, people are coming up from behind you.
Do you feel remorse?
I do.
That is his new message.
If you're looking for that love, if you're seeking gang love, it's not what it's made out to be.
Clipper's been in and out of state prison, places like Central Prison in Raleigh. Clipper says going to jail is like going to gang school. Some law enforcement who work within the system will tell you the same thing.
I've had quite a few gang members tell me that prison is almost like a criminal college to them.
Chris Rich is a probation and parole officer in Asheville. Asheville. Gangs are in this place normally known for tourism, good food, and hippies.
We don't see so much violence as much as drug use, cooking methamphetamines.
Why Asheville? Why would gangs come to the mountains?
Some of the larger areas where they come from, such as Raleigh, Charlotte, that sort of thing, they're well known there. So they want to get away from somewhere they're not so known. They may not have so much heat on them.
They don't need to fight for turf. When we come back, more on the small town invasion of gangs in North Carolina and why one man who's been undercover with Mexican drug cartels for 41 years says we are a hotbed of drug activity.
Do you have questions or comments? Molly Grantham is online right now. Join the conversation on the homepage at WVTV.com or reach Molly on Twitter at Molly Grantham.
I'm Molly Grantham. You're watching The Underworld Under Us. Decades ago, big U.S. cities started cracking down, pushing the gangs out to medium-sized cities like Charlotte and Raleigh. Well, now Charlotte and Raleigh are cracking down, which is splattering the gangs to every small place you can imagine. No town in North Carolina is immune.
We had a gang-related shooting in Wallace, North Carolina.
Wallace is in Duplin County, wine country, the last place you'd associate with crime. This landscape has had a gang murder, armed robberies, and tattooed tough guys trying to take over.
Not only do we have the MS-13, SIR-13, we have pretty much the whole gamut of the Hispanic gangs.
Ben Parrish is the main gang investigator.
I'm one of the officers that has had my life threatened by one of our local generated blood gangs, and they know that we're hot on their tail.
Gangs have also set up shop in Elizabeth City, population 22,000. Police Captain John Etheridge says both established gangs moving down from New York and homegrown ones.
ABG stands for All Black Gang.
And that's a gang that has come up in Elizabeth City?
Yes.
That kids in Elizabeth City have decided to start?
Yes.
They're not just tagging buildings, they're committing crimes.
They call themselves the Savages, and 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds.
And in a fascinating move, the best way Captain Etheridge says to investigate these guys is through Facebook, through the pages of officers who have kids.
Our own children will let us know, well, you know, this was posted on Facebook, or they posted that on Facebook, because they allow other kids to be their friends.
Through expansive fields, one stoplight towns, and coastal beauty. Stop now in Washington County.
They had a gang problem in Washington County and Plymouth.
Yes, Plymouth, a dot on a map. Special Agent Pat Forbes worked with ALE. He talks more freely about what went down there now that he recently retired.
There was so much gun violence and street violence that you had folks that could no longer go on the front porch and enjoy a summer evening.
Plymouth responded. In 2010, it sent a message to gangbangers with a massive bust. Feds were involved.
There were over 100 people indicted federally.
From Plymouth?
From Plymouth.
But bad guys don't ever just go away. They can lie low, but as Forbes candidly admits, they're now back.
We're beginning to detect an upsurge in 2013.
We're not just talking an upsurge in traditional gangs. Investigators say North Carolina has a growing issue with motorcycle gangs.
We've even got some outlaw biker gang activity in Hickory.
These outlaw motorcycle clubs, they deal with anything from extortion, murder for hire, prostitution.
North Carolina Highway Patrol says the top 4 motorcycle gangs within our state are the Hells Angels, Pagans, Outlaws, and Banditos. Generally speaking, Pagans are east of I-95. I-95 to I-77 is considered Hells Angels territory. West of I-77 to Tennessee is considered Outlaws. The Banditos are newer and smaller in numbers. Overall, thousands of members across the state. This is video of a road rage situation on Highway 16 this past July in Catawba County. Witnesses saw something going on. What it was, according to troopers, was an outlaw who got mad at a van. They wrecked. The outlaw had a get-back whip like this hanging off his handlebars and started making deep threats.
The whole time, he's waiting on help to get there. He's telling this guy in the van, hey, I'm going to kill you. My buddy's coming down here to kill you.
North Carolina's a little different in that gangs here move around easily. We have a lot of interstates and they put drug traffickers in our state. I-85 and I-77 in Charlotte and I-95 through Raleigh. These are major routes. But in recent years, drugs have gotten here and instead of moving through, they've stayed. They get distributed in our towns. That's not by chance. A man who would know says that's a directive from the drug cartels themselves.
I do a lot of undercover work down there in South Texas. And I've been at this for over 40-some years. And I plan on staying alive a lot longer.
Mr. X, as we're calling him, says these cartels are embedded in every part of our state.
They are hiring some of your gangs, your local gangs, whether it's in Charlotte, whether it's here in Carolina, anywhere, Dallas, Texas. There are certain gangs that are U.S. gangs, that a lot of them have affiliations to the Mexican gang.
They're hiring kids between the ages of 12 and 17 to move their drugs. Mr. X says the cartels will also hire gang members here in North Carolina to kill, kidnap, or extort from whomever tries to double-cross them. He has seen the worst of the worst.
They see in front of them the guy with the chainsaw, the guy with a knife waiting to get the order to cut your head off.
Once again, this is not a, oh, how scary, I can't imagine living in a place where that's a reality. You and I might not be involved in drug cartels, but that underworld reaches into our lives. Mostly it impacts our kids. When we come back, 2 North Carolina girls, an 18 and a 21-year-old, who are trying to get on track, but say they're scarred for life.
My uncle was actually murdered by a gang in front of me.
This now 18-year-old says gangs killed her uncle in Durham 6 years ago.
What gang?
MS-13.
And made her watch.
They said that his family deserved to suffer just as much as he did.
It was an unreported homicide. Her family was scared. Culture barriers didn't help. They never told anyone.
Do you remember him talking and hearing him?
Yeah, I was in the same room the whole time. I cry about it a lot. I think about it when I'm in my room and stuff. Or if I see like horror movies like that and stuff, I just really think about it.
She has gotten help recently through other girls familiar with how crime life can ruin you. Girls like LaSharon Davidson. She used to help recruit for the Bloods, still has 5 pointed stars tattooed on her body.
I used to sell drugs too. And so that was for people in the gang that's involved in the gang.
LaSharon's involvement began when her family moved from Detroit to Durham. She didn't have friends. Local gang members started giving her attention, and by 15, she became the girl they'd pass around.
I would have sex with probably 4 guys in a day.
It's a terrible, terrible thing to say out loud about yourself.
Yeah, so I can't. This gang stuff is just horrible.
LaSharon says the Bloods are still in the area where she lived, west end of Durham. She says she sees them when she goes back to visit family. But she got out, and both she and this 18-year-old who watched her uncle's murder.
I'm bold, intelligent. I'm God's gift.
Work hard to believe in themselves.
I'm very bubbly. I'm confident.
The stories from those 2 girls really impacted us. We've tried staying in touch since talking with them to match them with other mentor groups. LaSharon's story about being gang raped leads into the new way the underworld is working: prostitution. Traditionally, gangs have sold drugs to make money, but there's another, dirtier, and really more sad situation emerging. An agent with Homeland Security said she'd talk about it if we kept her identity hidden.
I investigate human trafficking.
It's called the hidden crime. This Homeland Security agent says human trafficking could eventually be the main source of income for gangs.
The reason being is that once they get a girl hooked in, they can have more than one. They can prostitute her out over and over and over. They never need to get more. Because drugs, you sell them, you have to get more. But the girl, you can just use her over and over and over, and it's a constant source of income.
The younger the girl, she says, the more they charge. Anywhere from $15 to $200 a sex act.
Primarily MS-13, 18th Street. We've seen Bloods and Crips involved in it as well. And I've also had investigations involving outlaw motorcycle gangs.
Is this happening in North Carolina?
Yes.
Vulnerable girls are scoped out.
One of our biggest places for recruitment is in the food court at the mall.
Then tricked. It's a fast source of income and a horrible exploitation of women.
I think about this in my cases and the victims that I work with 24 hours a day.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's hard to believe, but our ignorance is what they want.
It's hard to imagine that you'll survive.
Coming up, a Charlotte mom with a true, tough story.
Many times when we got up in the middle of the night and had to grab our children and get out the door.
And a look at what these crimes and these murders cost you.
You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
Join the conversation on the homepage at WVTV.com or reach Molly on Twitter at Molly Grantham.
The underworld under us.
It's not a law enforcement issue. It's an issue for everybody in that community.
That's Mark Bridgman, the president of the North Carolina Gang Investigators Association. He says there are 992 known gangs in North Carolina, close to 10,000 documented gang members. Thousands and thousands more we don't know about. They cost us, you and me, millions.
They estimate it costs taxpayers $1 to $3 per resident to get rid of graffiti within a community.
Costs you even more to put a known gang member behind bars.
And if they're identified as a gang member, they're placed at a higher level of security, so that costs more money.
A study is underway right now to assess the cost of crime in our state. It should be done by the end of 2013. For one mother, she says no matter the actual figure, the cost for her is priceless.
My son was killed April 24th, 2004.
Sergio Horta was not a gang member. Sandra Horta says she and her husband lived in Southern California and worked very hard to keep their 4 kids out of gangs.
In fact, we moved from different areas just to try to get into better neighborhoods.
But one of Sandra's younger sisters started dating a convicted criminal. He was a member of the large gang EMF.
To the point where he had the EMF letters tattooed all across his stomach and chest.
One day, one of her sister's kids came running to Sergio, said they'd just seen the boyfriend beat up their mom. Sergio went to go talk with him.
And he felt the need to stand up and defend her and confronted the man.
Sandra's son was 21. The gang member was 29. 2 weeks later, the gangbanger brought a car full of guys to fight him.
They provoked an altercation.
911, what is your emergency? Somebody just got stabbed.
That ended up in him stabbing my son in the heart. And my sister, whom babysat him when he was little, whom he defended against this man, decided to stand by her man despite the murder.
Sandra struggled to survive herself. She says she really struggled to protect her other children.
Did you ever think for a second, I won't testify, that these guys...
Yes, because I knew what they were capable of.
Ultimately, she did testify. She prayed and worried and held on to faith he would be found guilty. But then Sandra says the accused got on the stand and ripped her heart out.
He was put on the stand and he testified, and he basically said that he blacked out at the precise moment that he was stabbing my son. And the jury believed him, and they found him not guilty on all the charges.
And he walked away?
A free man. With nothing to show for.
Sandra relocated her whole family as far from LA as she could. They've been in Charlotte for years. She wrote a book, and recently Sandra was honored for her selflessness. At the awards ceremony, she turned and spontaneously spoke to officers.
Are we to cower before our circumstances? Are we to let the enemy destroy us even further? I say no.
She now works for Charlotte's FBI, helping translate at criminal scenes, hoping, she says, to help a justice system that failed her.
If there's something that I can do to help, then I'm gonna do it.
That's where we are now. What can you do? Get up, get moving, reach out, ask questions, open your eyes, get in the schools. It sounds basic. It's not. Hickory's police department was awarded Gang Unit of the Year. That's partly because they are asking the community for help. People like this woman, Sarah Nelson, are hugely dedicated volunteers. There are lots of Sarahs around, but more are needed. We have kids dying because the underworld is getting smarter.
A lot of them are likable sociopaths.
And because they want to win.
Why do you do it?
It's the greed.
We need to be greedy about keeping our own selves informed. That's why this whole show is going to be online, WBTV.com/underworld. Share it. There will be a lot of resources there from the NCGIA about how to get out of gangs, how to help your kids, and statistics for every single county in North Carolina. Remember, it's not to scare you, it's to educate. I'm Molly Grantham. On behalf of Leighton Grant, the chief photographer and editor, the moms who spoke, the kids who've been impacted, and the investigators who spoke honestly, we thank you for watching.